The sharp wind off Lake Winnipeg carried a damp chill that bit through his jacket. Jessie stuffed his hands into his pockets, boots crunching against the gravel. It had been a week since he threw his life into his car and drove north, leaving Winnipeg behind. The betrayal still felt like a heavy, physical weight in his chest, a tight knot making it hard to breathe. He had thought they were building a future, but it was an illusion. Gimli was supposed to be a sanctuary, where the crashing waves could drown out the noise in his head. He paused, brushing a cold hand through his fluffy brown hair. The local shops were waking up, neon open signs flickering against the overcast sky. He needed coffee. Not the artisanal espresso he used to grab downtown, but something simple. A block down the street, the familiar maroon and yellow sign of Robin's beckoned like a beacon of unremarkable comfort. It was exactly the sort of anonymous space he craved right now. The bell jingled as Jessie pushed inside. The air was thick with the scent of roasted beans and sugary glaze. The diner-style seating was mostly empty, save for two older men nursing large mugs. Jessie approached the counter, keeping his head down, offering a subdued smile to the cashier. "Just a large dark roast, please," Jessie said, his voice rusty from disuse. He paid, tipped his spare change into the plastic jar, and wrapped his cold hands around the cardboard cup. He chose a booth near the back, facing the window so he could watch the sparse traffic. Sliding into the vinyl seat, he took a slow sip. The hot, bitter coffee effectively grounded him. He closed his eyes, consciously unclenching his jaw. Just take it one day at a time, he reminded himself silently. Nobody knows you here. You can just exist. That was when he heard it. It wasn't loud. It was a soft, rhythmic hum that gradually formed into quiet, distinct words. The voice carried a gentle, lilting cadence, completely unbothered by the mechanical hum of the refrigerators and the low murmur of the old men. I was the lonely one, wondering what went wrong, why love had gone. Jessie opened his eyes and glanced around. 2 booths down, obscured by the high back of the seat, was a young woman. She wasn't actually cleaning the table. She was tracing a repeating, invisible pattern over the formica, her gaze entirely fixed on the circular motion of her hand. "And you were the lonely one," she continued singing, her voice remarkably clear. It carried a surprising depth and an innate gentleness that made the tiny hairs on the back of Jessie's neck stand up. "But even the nights are better, now that we're here together." It was an old Air Supply song. His mother used to play it on cassettes during road trips. The nostalgic melody hit Jessie with an unexpected wave of raw emotion, melting a fraction of the ice around his broken heart. He leaned slightly out of his booth to look. The girl had short hair dyed a fading red, framing a face deep in concentration. Her round hazel eyes were intensely focused on the tabletop, disconnected from reality. She wore an oversized dark green sweater that swallowed her frame. There was something profoundly guarded about her posture. As Jessie shifted his weight, the old vinyl seat squeaked sharply beneath him. The singing stopped instantly. The girl's head snapped up. Her gaze darted frantically around the room before landing squarely on Jessie. Panic flashed across her face. She dropped the cloth immediately, pulling both hands quickly into her lap as if she had been burned. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped the hem of her sweater. She looked like a startled deer, vibrating with tension, ready to bolt. Jessie immediately realized his mistake. He had intruded on her sanctuary. Guilt washed over him. He knew exactly what it felt like to want the world to just look away and leave you alone. Instead of offering an overly friendly greeting, which he instinctively felt would only terrify her more, Jessie gave a slow, minimal, and deeply respectful nod. He made sure his expression was entirely unthreatening. "I'm sorry," Jessie said softly, keeping his voice level and devoid of social pressure. "I really didn't mean to interrupt you. You have a beautiful voice." The girl didn't say thank you or offer a polite dismissal. She just stared at him with intense hazel eyes, her brow furrowing as if trying to decode a puzzle. She didn't seem to understand the pleasantry. Shrinking back, she pressed her spine firmly against the vinyl booth. Sensing her profound discomfort, Jessie immediately averted his eyes, looking out the front window. Respecting her space was the only right thing to do. He picked up his cup and took another slow sip, projecting absolute calm indifference as he watched a gray seagull land on the hood of a parked truck outside. The minutes stretched into a suspended silence. Jessie watched the gray clouds roll over the distant lake, staying perfectly still. He could feel her gaze on the side of his face, assessing his micro-movements. He didn't turn back. He simply sat there, giving her the necessary room to exist without expectation. To his quiet surprise, several minutes later, the faint sound of humming started again. It was much softer this time, barely a breathy whisper over the persistent hum of the diner's refrigerators, but it was unmistakably there. Even the days are brighter when someone you love's beside ya. A tiny smile tugged at Jessie's mouth. He didn't look at her, terrified of breaking the fragile peace. He just listened, letting the melody wash over him. For the first time in a week, the suffocating grip of his heartbreak loosened a fraction. It was replaced by a delicate curiosity about this guarded girl with the red hair and the gentle voice. Gimli was cold and quiet, but as the song filled the diner, Jessie thought maybe the healing process had finally begun. The coffee in Jessie's cup had long gone cold, but he didn't mind. The bitter dregs grounded him as he sat in the booth, watching the afternoon slip quietly into early evening. The gray clouds over Lake Winnipeg thickened, casting a flat. The coffee in Jessie's cup had long gone cold, but he didn't mind. The bitter dregs grounded him as he sat in the booth, watching the afternoon slip quietly into early evening. The gray clouds over Lake Winnipeg thickened, casting a flat, silvery light through the large front window of Robin's. The town of Gimli felt muted, wrapped in a damp chill that made the ambient warmth of the diner all the more inviting. The establishment had slowly emptied out over the last hour. The two older men had shuffled off, leaving only the mechanical hum of the refrigerators and the occasional clink of ceramic from behind the counter. Jessie kept his gaze directed outward, purposefully giving the girl in the oversized green sweater the entire expanse of the room. He could hear her moving about, collecting cups, wiping down tables with rhythmic, precise, and unvarying motions. Behind the register, Mrs. Henderson observed the quiet choreography of the room. She wiped down the espresso machine with practiced efficiency, but her sharp, discerning eyes darted frequently toward the back booths. Jessie sensed her protective weight in the room. She was an unspoken guardian, her presence a silent warning to anyone who might disrupt the diner's fragile ecosystem. He respected that entirely. In fact, he found comfort in the older woman's vigilant watch. Her gray hair was pulled back so tightly, it seemed to pull her features into a permanent state of alertness. He made sure to keep his own movements slow and predictable so as not to set off any invisible alarms, sipping his lukewarm coffee and staring at the peeling paint on the windowsill. At exactly 4 o'clock, the girl finished her assigned tasks. Jessie watched her reflection, faintly mirrored in the glass of the window. She disappeared into the back room and emerged a few minutes later without her maroon and yellow apron, clutching a worn canvas tote bag to her chest like a protective shield. She stood near the edge of the hallway, her weight shifting repeatedly from one foot to the other. She was looking at him, or rather, she was looking at the high back of his booth, calculating something internally. Jessie didn't turn around. He remained perfectly still, resting his chin on his knuckles, giving her the full agency to walk out the door without the heavy pressure of a forced interaction. He listened to the soft, rhythmic squeak of her sneakers against the linoleum floor. The footsteps didn't move toward the exit. They moved closer to his aisle. They stopped, started again, and finally paused right at the edge of his table. Jessie slowly turned his head, keeping his posture relaxed and non-confrontational. She stood there, her knuckles bone-white around the thick straps of her bag, her hazel eyes fixed firmly on the cold cardboard cup sitting on the table between them. "I didn't say thank you," she said. Her voice was flat, carrying none of the lilting, beautiful melody from her singing earlier. It sounded like a practice statement, pushed out through a highly visible layer of anxiety. "When you said my voice was beautiful, it is an expected social convention to express gratitude when complimented. I failed to execute it." Jessie offered a small, reassuring shake of his head. "You didn't have to say anything at all. I meant what I said, but I shouldn't have startled you." "I am Kira," she stated, still addressing the coffee cup with intense concentration. "I have bad experiences with people who do not have a disability. When I was younger, the school system separated the special education classrooms from the mainstream classrooms. We were placed in a completely different wing. The isolation bred severe misunderstanding." She took a short, mechanical breath, her fingers twisting the canvas strap until the fabric groaned. "I did not interact with the mainstream students. When I did, they were loud. They were unpredictable. They did not mean what they said, and they laughed at things that were not humorous. In high school, I spent my lunch periods observing them, like an anthropological study. I took copious notes. I recorded their vocal inflections, their posturing, their micro-expressions when they were deceiving one another. I wanted to understand how people who are not like me operate, because survival requires adapting to their parameters." She finally looked up, her round eyes darting to his chin, then his nose, before quickly snapping back down to the safety of the table surface. "I learned that they lie. They use compliments to extract reactions. They mock. I do not trust people who operate under those parameters. So when you spoke to me, my primary operational response was defensive." Jessie listened to her clinical, deeply honest assessment with a rising sense of quiet awe. There was no pretense in her words, no polite sugar-coating to make the harsh reality palatable. It was a stark, unvarnished truth that resonated violently with the hollow ache in his chest. His ex had been entirely fluent in the very language Kira was describing. The effortless lies, the extracted reactions, the performative affection that carefully disguised a profound betrayal. He remembered the dinners where she would smile and hold his hand, projecting a perfect image to their friends, while already actively planning her exit. Kira had looked at neurotypical behavior and seen the chaos. Jessie had lived inside that chaos, trusted it entirely, and was currently bleeding from it. "You studied them, huh?" Jessie asked softly, ensuring his tone held absolutely zero trace of condescension or pity. "Did you figure out the secret?" Kira shook her head sharply. "No, their emotional output is highly illogical." "I think you're right," Jessie said. He leaned back against the vinyl seat, creating a fraction more physical distance to ensure she felt safe in the aisle. "People can be incredibly unpredictable. And they can be cruel. They'll tell you they love you, while actively tearing down the foundation of your life." He paused, looking down at his own hands, the ghost of his past relationship flashing painfully behind his eyes. "I understand why you prefer your own space, Kira. And I completely understand why you'd be suspicious of a compliment from a stranger. The truth is, no matter who you are, life is not kind. We all just get dragged through the gravel in different ways." Kira's brow furrowed. She processed his words deliberately, her head tilting a fraction of an inch to the side as if weighing the syllables. The defensive rigidity in her shoulders softened, just slightly. She recognized the utter lack of pity in his voice. There was only a shared, weary acknowledgement of the world's harshness. "Life is a high-variance environment," Kira agreed quietly. "Exactly," Jessie said, a faint, genuine smile touching the corners of his mouth for the first time in days. High variance. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat softly from the counter. It wasn't a reprimand, just a gentle, ambient reminder of the hour. Kira blinked, stepping back into the center of the aisle. I have corrected my social error, Kira announced, gripping her bag tighter once again. Thank you for the compliment regarding my vocal pitch. You're very welcome, Kira. Have a good evening. She turned and walked briskly out the front door of Robin's, the bell jingling cheerfully in her wake. Jessie watched her disappear down the sidewalk, her oversized green sweater fading into the gray mist of the small town. He took a long, deep breath, realizing that for the first time since he packed his car in Winnipeg, the tight knot in his chest felt just a little bit looser.